Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast. I'm excited to have you joining us. And also our guest today, this is Ronnie Daniel, and he is the Executive Director of the Children First Education Fund right here in South Jordan, Utah. So when I say right here, I'm in Eagle Mountain here in South Jordan, but just up the street a little ways here, about a half an hour away. So Ronnie, thank you so much for taking time to join us on the podcast here. I'm excited to talk about your book, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So thanks so much for joining me. Is there anything that you would like the folks to know about the Children First Education Fund and how that works?
Sure. Yeah, we're a nonprofit, and we're kind of a unique nonprofit in the state of Utah in that we are the manager of a state program called the Utah Special Needs Opportunity Scholarship Program. And so we give out scholarships to children with disabilities in the state of Utah, kindergarten through 12th grade. And the scholarships range from about $9,000 to $11,000, where the family falls on the federal poverty level. And they can use the scholarship funds to have school choice options outside of public school. And the scholarships primarily can be used for tuition at a private school, or they can use the funds for homeschool to help meet their educational needs at home. And the really unique thing about this program is that the state legislature allows all of our donors, whether it's an individual or corporation, to get a 100% state income tax credit for their donation. So that means, Sean, if you owed $10,000 in state income tax, you could donate that amount to Children First and totally eliminate your state tax liability. So I like to tell our donors, I don't want your charitable dollars. Keep supporting your favorite charities. Just send me the money you're going to send to the state in taxes, and we'll use that to provide scholarships for kids with disabilities. And so it's an incredible program. You can find out more about it on our website at cfe-fund.org and tell you all about the program and about the donation opportunities.
That's fantastic. It's a great program. And you and I have known each other for years now, and we've kind of become a little more familiar with these programs and whatnot. So that's fantastic. I'm really excited that you're doing that and that you're out there to help the kids. And it's a great way to kind of divert your tax dollars to the state. Now, just to kind of clarify a little bit, that's for the state of Utah. As far as you know, are there similar programs in other states here in the United States?
Yeah, we're about one of 22 states in the nation that has a program like this. And so the best thing to do in your state would be to reach out to your state tax commission and go to their website. I know in Utah, you can go to the state tax commission website, and there's information on there about this tax credit opportunity. If you just do your state tax commission and tax credits, then it'll pop up on a list there if they have one for your state.
Fantastic. Very good. All right. Well, Ronnie, about a year ago, you released a book called Stand and Be Kings, and I have read it, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it and learn a little bit more about the motivation behind it, as well as some of the content and some of the messages that you're trying to portray and encourage and promote and so on and so forth. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to have my glasses on and off as we talked about before we started the recording here. But let's start by just talking a little bit about the motivation behind the book. What was it that made you feel like, this is something that I need to write and put out there? And a little bit about the general purpose of the book.
Sure. So I think a lot of people kind of have in the back of their mind, someday I want to write a book, right? And that was certainly true for me. Something I've wanted to do for a while. And about 3.5 years ago, I had a life-altering challenge that came in my life. I was diagnosed with cancer. And so that caused me to kind of reevaluate some priorities in my life. And so the book that I wanted to write was, what would I have liked to have known when I was 20 that I know now, right? So all those kind of things, how to be a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better grandfather, how to be a better business leader. And so I started writing those things down. What is it that I'd like to do? And all of a sudden it kind of turned into a book. And so that's sort of where it came from. So my motivation was wanting to share these ideas with my family and friends and people I work with. But I'm a voracious reader. I love to read and listen to books. And I never liked books that are just preaching to me. You should do this and this and this. So I tried to create this in a fun narrative, build a story around it so that kind of adds some fun to it so that it's not as a challenging read. But really, the basis of the book is all about how do you how can you be a king or a ruler over all the different aspects of your life? And so in the book, I refer to them as realms. What are the realms of your life that you govern? And the first realm certainly is that realm that you have with yourself and with your supreme being, however you define your supreme being out there. I think most people believe that there's a force beyond us out in the universe, and we can tap into that source and get power from that. And so that's the first realm, is how do we focus on improving our self-talk? How do we talk to ourselves? How do we believe in ourselves? How do we connect with that ultimate source out in the universe and become a better person? How do we have personal integrity? How do we follow through on our commitments that we make to ourselves, and use that then to build in the other realms? And we can talk more about the other realms here in a little bit.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can vouch for the fact that it's a light, fun read. It's not heavy-duty stuff. It's just something for folks to read and just kind of enjoy and read, however many pages a person reads in a sitting or whatever it may be. But no, I really enjoyed it. I want to ask a couple of questions. Primarily, this was targeted towards men. It had kind of a lean towards that. It was, at least that's how it felt to me. Was there a particular reason why you chose that angle to kind of say, hey, guys, we need to step up and go to your book title, Stand and Be Kings? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, definitely. I know that in my own life and with a lot of people that I know, that, we, a lot of times, especially in our political correct environment of our world that we're in now, sometimes we almost apologize for the fact that we're men, and I think we certainly don't want to be overbearing to anyone else in the world, but I think we need to, like you said, kind of stand up. And I know for me, particularly as I've been going through this cancer experience, I needed to kick myself in the butt a little bit and say I need to be better at the relationships in my life, and I need to make sure that I'm more effective in being the kind of person that I want to be. So that's part of it. But I also think, generally, especially in the United States, I think that there is a kind of an overwhelming force out there that really diminishes the roles of men, and being that traditional husband, that traditional father, being the stand-up person that we know we need to be. And so there is definitely a bit of a flavor in that in my book about, as men, I think we need to stand up and say, I'm okay being a man. It's all right to be a man. But also, what is that responsibility that comes along with that? And how do we make the world a better place because we're in it?
I really like that. And it is something that I feel the same about, that it's important that men recognize they have a responsibility in that role. And that does not mean to be domineering or overshadowing women at all. It has everything to do with stand up and develop the relationships and take good care of yourself as well as the people around you. And that goes back to kind of the five realms that you were talking about. I also wanted to, similar to this, these different, you have a section of the book where you talk about fortress groups, and they're kind of, I'll just name them very quickly: psychologically, socially, spiritually, physically, and fiscally. Why do you feel that those five realms, or not really realms, I should say, but the fortress groups, what's, you get together, you routinely collaborate about those five ideas. Why those five do you feel are so important, especially for
you probably the concept of having a brainstorm group or a mastermind group? That's probably not an uncommon theme for most of the people on your call here. That's something that a lot of motivational speakers, a lot of success gurus have talked about, is surround yourself with a mastermind group that can help you be a better person. And most often that gets focused in on business. Bring these people around you to help you be a better business person. But I believe that if you have a mastermind group like that, or a fortress group, as I refer to it in the book, why not focus on all those aspects of our lives that are so critical? I mean, for instance, I just got a call or a text message last night from one of my neighbors, good friend of mine, said, "Hey, me and another guy are going walking this morning. Why don't you come with us?" And so we went out and did a 2.5 mile walk, and it was great. We had some fun conversations. We were walking, but together it was much easier for me to go exercise and get some physical exercise than it was if I had to motivate myself to go do that on my own, right? And so I think that's an aspect of it. But, wouldn't it be also great in this mastermind group to talk about how we can make a difference in the world, how we can be better socially minded, and maybe how can we be better fiscally minded? There's all kinds of people. You hear it all the time. If you want to be financially successful, surround yourself with people who make more money than you, because you'll learn from them. The attributes that they have will rub off on you. Don't hang out with people who are poorer than you, because then you'll tend to be more like them. That's kind of the philosophy here. So surround yourself with people that can help you become a better person and can help motivate you, help hold you accountable for those things that you say you want to do. It's much easier to accomplish things if you have that accountability group around you. So whether it's a physical goal or a financial goal or a spiritual goal that you want to achieve, having people that are surrounding you and supporting you, helping you to be accountable, is a much more effective way of being successful in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a temptation for each of us, I think, to, for whatever reason, we kind of keep things to ourselves. And to some degree, I get that, and I understand why people might want certain things to be a little bit more private. But I completely agree with you that it is really important that we surround ourselves with good people that can help hold us accountable in a good, positive, uplifting way and help us achieve more. And to learn,
I think, Sean, one of the things that I love about what you do is that as a business coach, that's exactly what you do. You become part of that person's inner circle, and you help hold them accountable for goals that they want to achieve. You give them some coaching and guidance along the way. And that's what I'm talking about is if we could all create our own little coaching circle of people that we like and admire and want to help each other be better. That's really what this idea is having surrounding ourselves with people that will help us be better.
Well, I love that. Let's talk a little bit more about kind of the 5 realms and those relationships and what those really mean and why those are important. So go a little bit more into that. You talked about the first one, yourself, which I thought was so powerful. We have to have a good relationship with ourselves. We have to think well about ourselves. We have to have positive thinkings about ourselves without completely ignoring the weaknesses or challenges that need to be developed. What other thoughts do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so in that realm with ourselves, just think about your self-talk, for instance. If you could record all of the self-talk you have during a day, would it be more positive or more negative? I think a lot of us fall into that trap of being very self-critical and, calling ourselves names or, if you think, oh, you dummy, why'd you do that? we think that about ourselves, right? And that is a very powerful thing. I have a plaque on my wall here in my office that says, watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, because they become your actions. Watch your actions, because they become your habits. And watch your habits, because they become your destiny. And so it all starts with what we're doing here in our thoughts, in our mind. And are we being positive or ourselves? Are we being accepting of ourselves? Are we being kind to ourselves? And I think that will then translate into the way we treat other people and the way we treat the world if we are thinking about ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's continue with the conversation. What are some of the other relationships and realms that we need to be?
Yeah, so realm 2 focuses on the realms of the most important people in our lives, which is typically your family. And so I focus a lot on relationships with your spouse and understanding, the communications we have with one another is so important, and the actions that we show to one another are so important. And so I know in my 36 years of marriage to my wife, I have learned a lot about how to understand the female mind, at least my wife's mind. Maybe not the all female minds, but at least my wife's mind. And we've had some bumps along the way. I don't think any relationship can exist without having bumps. But I'll tell a quick story. I share this in the book. But there was one day that I was out working in our yard. I was doing some landscaping. I was moving big boulders around in our yard. So I was I started early in the morning. I came in about 11 o'clock for a break, and I was standing in the kitchen drinking a glass of cold lemonade, and my wife came storming into the kitchen, just furious. And I'm like, what happened? She goes, I got to the grocery store. I had my whole cart full of groceries. I went to the checkout stand. I realized I left my purse home. And so she had to put all the groceries back, come home to get her purse. And And I was so tired, normally my normal thing would be, well, why didn't you do the da-da-da? That was what I would normally do, but I was just tired. So I just stopped and listened to her. And I said, oh man, that must have been really hard. That must have been really frustrating. And she went on for about 5 minutes telling me the frustrations. And I just kind of shook my head and was there just listening. And at the end of that, she came over and gave me a big hug and a kiss and said, thank you. I really needed someone just to listen to me. And she grabbed her purse and ran out back to the grocery store to get groceries. And I sat there and I thought, man, I didn't do anything. In fact, I thought to myself, I was a failure in that communication because I didn't give her any feedback. All I did was just sit and listen and acknowledge what she was saying. But as I talked to her about that later, she's like, I didn't need you to tell me. I already knew what I did wrong. I didn't need you to tell me how to fix it. I just needed someone to acknowledge that I was having a rough day and to listen to me. And that changed the dynamic of our relationship significantly from that point on, because I think as men, a lot of times we like to put on our Mr. Fix-It hat, and when we're talking to someone, we're very good at giving advice and we should do this, you should do that. But my experience, especially in dealing with my wife and my 2 daughters and other female relationships I've had in my life, is that if I take my Mr. Fix-It hat off most of the time and only put it on when I have their permission to put it on and just acknowledge them and listen, my relationship with them is improved significantly. But as soon as I was putting that Mr. Fix-It hat on and get into that role of I need to tell you how to fix your life, then communication shuts down, relationships deteriorate.
Oh yeah, it's such a great point. And it's one of those things that we all need to be reminded of once in a while, because I've heard that multiple times. I'm getting a little bit older in life here, but at the same time, it is definitely worth remembering that we're not always being asked to solve a problem when somebody comes to us. And a lot of times we just need to listen and just be patient and kind of hear them out and offer some encouragement or support. But that's about it. We don't need to be solving problems. And what your wife said is exactly right. She already knew what to do. And, she didn't have a problem to be solved. You're just frustrated with the situation.
Right. Exactly. But I think that also then extends to the relationship with our kids. I have a unique philosophy. Maybe I hope it's not unique, but at least it's unique to sometimes the people that I see around me. And that as my kids were growing, I did not see my relationship with my kids to be their friend. My relationship with my kids was to be their father and to teach them and help them learn accountability, to help them learn to become great adults when they left my care. And now all 4 of my kids have left the house and they're out on their own. They're all married and living their own lives. Now I have a more friend relationship with them. But they all called me, my kids all called me the mean dad, because I made them do chores before they could go have fun. I made them earn money to pay for things that they wanted. I didn't pay for any of their college. I wanted them to be, if that's something they wanted to do, to make sure that they did that on their own. But all of them now, as they have gone more into their adult life, have come back to me and said, Dad, thanks for being that kind of dad. You taught me how to be a better person. You taught me to be responsible for my own actions. You taught me to be accountable for the things that were important to me. And that meant the world to me. That to me was an A on my report card as being a dad, because I know that that's what I wanted them to do. I didn't want them to feel like that I was their problem solver, that I was always going to solve their problems for them. And so I talk a lot about that in the book too, about how to maintain great relationships with our kids in different stages of their lives. As they, certainly as if they're, toddlers, you are that protector and you're helping them. But as they get older, it's important to teach your kids responsibility and accountability and help them understand that, that what they do in life, there's repercussions for that, and they have to be responsible. And so I know I'm saying I have perfect kids, and I know I'm saying I've been a perfect dad. There's been rocks along the way. But I think that as we look at our roles, and that one significant role of being a father, a parent to our children, I think as we approach that and approach the relationships with our kids, we need to take time to measure that. My relationship with my sons is different than my relationship with my daughters, because they're different people. And each of them, even my 2 sons, I have different relationships with each of them because they're different. But I try to take a very pointed position in how I work and treat with my kids, because I treat them as individuals, but I also want to make sure I respect them and have that positive relationship with them. And they'll be the first ones to tell you that I am not perfect at that. I fail significantly many times, but that's, I think, if we have that approach and we try again and try to have that type of relationship, that realm will be much more effective. And honestly, I think in our lives, the relationships that bring us the most joy and or the most pain are relationships with those that are most close to us, right? And so we need to take a active and proactive position in those relationships that are most important to us, and make sure we're extending to those members of our family that we love the most all the grace we can and all the love we can, and how do we make those relationships stronger and more effective? Because, like I said, they'll bring us the most joy and or the most pain if we don't pay attention to them.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. Yeah, I appreciate those insights a lot, because it is a challenge. It is a challenge to kind of believe in the long-term investment, if you will, of parenting, and to parent first. Then as they get older, you can kind of let it evolve into more of a friendship. Well, a couple of things. There were several little nuggets in the book there were a lot of them, actually. There was one quote in particular. Well, there were several, but there's a couple that I'm going to kind of bring to the discussion here. One of them is the following. I'm going to quote it here. "Be worthy of the trust of the other person. This means you must be loyal to them, never speak ill of them in their presence, but even more importantly, do not speak ill of them behind their back." And that's the end of the quote there. But this is something that, in my view, our society is really struggling with. And I'm guilty of it. I've done it. I think we've all done it to a certain extent. We get into a different setting and we say something. And I think part of the reason why this connected with me is I had a very unfortunate experience years ago, where I was in my office with the door closed, but not realizing that the walls weren't quite as thick as maybe they should have been. I was on the phone with somebody kind of complaining about one of my coworkers. He happened to be outside the door and heard the whole conversation and emailed me a little bit later and kind of said, "Sean, I'm sorry," that he was very cordial about it. We had a good conversation. We're friends to this day, but it was uncomfortable. It was awkward. I was embarrassed. And I made a promise to myself that I would not ever do that again. It was like, I don't need to speak ill. I can always speak positively about people and still identify those areas where it's like, okay, I need to, let's work on something. But this is such a, obviously this is a leadership type of podcast. And so one of the reasons why this particular part of the book was so important, as leaders, I feel that it is absolutely imperative that you're not a parent to the people that you lead, but you are leading and trying to help develop them. And part of that means not speaking ill of them and negatively about them, either in their presence or, like you said, outside of their presence. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. What are some reasons why that is so damaging, even if no one's around to hear it? What are your thoughts on why that's so important?
I had a very similar experience that you had, Sean, about that, where I put my foot in my mouth when I didn't think anybody else, the person was hearing, and the word got back to them that I'd said something derogatory about them, and I felt awful about that, and and had to go through a lot of steps to repair that relationship afterwards, right? And so I think you've heard the old adage that you should praise in public and discipline in private, and so if you are having an issue with an individual, whether it's a coworker or someone that works for you, have the maturity, have the willingness to have those conversations to work out your differences in a private setting. That shows you respect that person, and do it in a respectful way, obviously, but don't have those disciplinary conversations or those disagreements out in public, because that does nothing but change the person's attitude towards you. And so, because here's the reality is that if you talk to somebody behind their back, somebody else, that person you're talking to, all of a sudden the seed gets planted in their mind. Are they going to be talking about me behind my back too? Right? So if you can always be seen as someone that has integrity, someone that's not going to talk bad about someone behind their back, then you have the ability to build stronger relationships. You have a stronger platform, a foundation of those relationships.
Yeah, I love that. And part of the reason why I feel so passionate about this topic is because I have experienced myself, having been in different leadership positions in different settings, I have learned firsthand that you have to be really careful. Even, and we kind of talked about this earlier about our, what we think and what we say, and that little chain there. But it really does matter what we think about another person too, because even if you've got these ideas that, oh, this person, they struggle with this, or they're not very good at that, or I don't like this part, or whatever it is, there are always some good elements, some positive elements. And when we focus on those, our relationship with that person is stronger. It just is, and I'm sure there's some psychology out there that explains all of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How critical is that,
I think it's so critical because I believe when you put out the positive vibes to that person, that you respect them. I mean, can we say we love them as a person? We have that respect for them. Then those vibes that we send out to that person help lift them up. But even if we don't say words out loud, if we have negative feelings about someone, we don't say them out loud, our demeanor towards them is going to be negative, and that's going to push them away and make the relationship more difficult. I can look back at several relationships I've had in my life where I didn't approach it the way that we just described. And even though I didn't maybe say something to their face or behind their back about it, I just wasn't positive about them. People I supervised or something, and they never got better, and I'm not looking back, and I can't be surprised by that because I never expected them to be better. I never had that thought that they could be better because I didn't exude that positiveness or that respect that I had or should have had for them to help them be a better person.
Yeah, I think we can all reflect back, especially as we get older in life. We can all reflect back on times when we go, gee, that probably wasn't the best way to handle that situation or whatever. But it's just, I feel so passionate about it because I see not just the negative outcomes of kind of the experiences, Ronnie, both you and I have had, unfortunately, but I've also seen the positive side of when we do think positively about people and we do look for the good in them. That doesn't mean we ignore the things that I need to work on. And if we're in a position of authority to do so, like a parent or a leader of a team or a company, then you do have a responsibility, I would say, to help that individual if it's a legitimate type of concern that's, hey, this is affecting us negatively or whatever it is. And so and that kind of goes back to your comment about being a parent and not just a friend, because it is important to do it with kindness and with love, of course, but we do need to correct. We do need to help people.
Yeah, I had one experience that is in a work setting. I was the staff leader for about 50 people at the organization I worked for, and there was one individual who just was not cutting it. I knew it, he knew it. So we had multiple conversations, multiple coaching sessions, and went to try to help him improve. And I really did try to treat him with respect and give him the grace to know that, hey, you can get better if you want. And so after about 3 months of working with him and still not seeing a lot of progress, he came to me and said, I just don't think this job is right for me. And I said, I agree. Let me help you find another job. And I did. I worked with my networking group and found another job. And so one of the things I never liked, and I think most supervisors don't like, is that disciplinary role that we play, and even to the point of having to let someone go, right? But I think if we and this doesn't necessarily work for all cases. If there's someone who is blatantly, making that you need to take action there. But if in this situation, this guy was a great guy, he just did not have the skill sets to help him be successful in the role. I gave him every opportunity to improve, gave him the coaching I needed, and he came to me and said, I need to leave. It wasn't me having to tell him you're fired, which is something none of us like to do, but he came to me, and then it turned out as a positive thing because I was able to help him find a role that was much more suitable to him with one of my networking people that I had. And so I think we can diminish a lot of those challenging and negative relationships with employer to employees that we all hate and we all are avoiding by treating relationships on a much more positive basis.
I love that story and I love that example because it's one of those where we can maintain the positive relationship and help both. Because if an employee is not working out, so let's put it very broad there, if they're not working out, then you're not doing them a favor by not saying anything, first of all, and letting them think that things are just fine and dandy and they can just continue. It hurts you, it hurts them because they don't realize that they're struggling. And then if you can help them and they can excel in the role, then great. And if not, then at some point you part ways, but you do so in a constructive way, in a positive way.
And also that has an impact on the rest of the team, because the rest of the team knows the person's not pulling their weight. They're not successful. Right. And if you as a leader don't address it, then that impacts the relationship you have with the rest of the team members too.
Oh, excellent point. Excellent point. All right. Well, let's start to kind of just wrap it up here a little bit here. I know we're a little bit over the normal time for those who usually listen in, but this was deliberate. We'll bring on down the road here more and more authors and people that are promoting the specific ideas, because I think it's important as leaders to really do that. One other thing, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'd like to just kind of start to wrap up here with this particular quote from your book. And this is the quote: "The way you talk with yourself and the way you think about yourself defines your relationship with yourself." So talk a little bit more about how the book can help an individual really have a lot more self-esteem, self-confidence, whether it's in the role of a leader or not. But either way, how does the book help us as individuals, and particularly as men, to develop a little bit more self-confidence and a little bit more self-esteem?
Yeah, one of the underlying themes of the book, I don't think I ever really talk about it, but then I think is redemption. You know, I think we put so much pressure on ourselves, all of us, that we have to be perfect and we have to be, the best all the time. And, I think, what I've learned in my life, I have to give myself permission to understand when I've made a mistake and the grace to improve it or fix it. Right. I think that's something that the book talks about there too. So, don't beat yourself up if you feel like if you have a failing relationship, with someone. Start today to make a difference. And in the book, I talk about making emotional deposits into people's emotional accounts. And so that's one way you can fix that. So if you're struggling with your spouse, or you're struggling with a child, or you're struggling with a coworker, what can you do today to make a positive deposit into their life? And start there by making and keeping commitments to them that you can help improve those relationships. And that's as important about ourselves. So if you have an area of your life that you want to improve, make a commitment to yourself that you want to improve that, and then have the integrity to keep that commitment with yourself. So often, I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I will put a block of time on my calendar that I'm going to have some personal production or personal time where I'm going to work on some things. And then the next day, I know I get a call from a donor or a client or somebody, and the only time they can meet is during that time that I've scheduled for myself. And what's the first thing we all do? We sacrifice our personal time to take care of business, right? And so I think part of that is being true to ourselves. And if we've set aside time on our calendar to work on ourselves, be true to that. And if we need to, and then don't excuse that right away. So hey, because you don't have to tell the other person who the appointment's with, right? Say, hey, I can't meet, then I got an appointment. Can we do it another time? And and certainly there are exceptions to that. There's an emergency we need to take care of. But for the most part, if we try to be true to ourselves and have integrity to ourselves, we're going to become more solid as a person, and that'll help us in all aspects of our life, with relationships, with our jobs, spiritually, physically, financially. All those areas of our lives will become that much better if we're true to ourselves and we're helping to improve ourselves on a daily basis.
I love that. And that's a really important message that all of us need to always remind ourselves about, is that we need to be giving time to ourselves, to develop ourselves, to remind ourselves of the good things that we have and that we contribute and bring into the world and share with the world. And yeah, you're right. There's some occasions where you need to make a little bit of an exception to that. But for the most part, stay focused on that and be committed to yourself. I love it. Well, I enjoyed the book, and it's been a lot of fun. Go ahead. Do you have any other thoughts?
I was just going to say, and one way to spend some great quality time with yourself is to read Stand and Be Kings. And if you find some good principles out of that, awesome. So
that's awesome. I like it. All right. Well, thanks so much, Ronnie. I really appreciate you taking time to jump on. I love the book and enjoyed it very much. And I appreciate the effort that you're making to try and help, particularly men, but people everywhere, to really develop those relationships in their lives that are most critical, and how to kind of work on those a little bit, especially as business leaders. That's something that's important to me that not just with their leadership, with their teams at work, but also in their personal life as well, to whatever extent that they want to. But I would love that very much. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You can find the book on Amazon. So just Google Amazon. You can either Google my name, Ronnie Daniel, or Stand and Be Kings, and you'll find it in Amazon. And you can pick up a copy there.
Perfect. Any other comments or any other ways to get a hold of you for any other information that they might want to have?
Yeah, if you'd like to email me, my personal email is just Ronnie Daniel 20 altogether @gmail.com. So you can shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the book. And that's probably the easiest and best way to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks so much, Ronnie. And thanks to everybody who is joining us for today's episode. We appreciate it very much. And we'll go ahead and say thanks so much and have a great day.
This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.